Hi everyone. Today I'm here again to explain Kia and Hyundai 8-speed automatic transmission solenoid valves. As you guys may know, Kia and Hyundai started using a new generation of front-wheel drive transmission, which has 8-speed and it comes in these codes A8LF1 and A8MF1. So what actually we are trying to do in this video is first of all we will discuss the solenoid valves locations on the valve body because there are 8 solenoid valves on this valve body, so we need to know which one is which. And we will discuss the diagnostics procedure for those solenoid valves as well. For this kind of transmissions, on some of these solenoid valves, after replacing these valves, you need to reprogram them using the scan tool. So it means on some of these solenoid valves, there is a number that you need to register it for the TCM. So I'm going to show you how to find those codes and how to perform this programming. And later on, we will have a look at the wiring diagrams for these solenoid valves. All right, let's start. So before starting to talk about the solenoid valves, it's really important to know some general ideas about this kind of transmission. First of all, uh, in this kind of transmission, there are 4 clutch packs. We have 2 brakes. There are 3 planetary gear sets. And at the end, as I said earlier, there are 8 solenoid valves. But let's start to see what could be the possible causes for these solenoid valves. If one of them is faulty, what could be the possible causes? As you see here, there are different fault codes connected to these solenoid valves. Some of them are directly referring to these solenoid valves. As you see, we have some trouble codes referring to exactly one specific solenoid valve, like here, shift control solenoid valve A, which is for UD brake, or shift control solenoid valve B, which is for 2 and 6 brake, and some others. So these fault codes are referring directly to one solenoid valve. But there are some other fault codes that obviously one cause for those fault codes can be the solenoid valves as well. For example, gear 1 incorrect ratio, it goes all the way to gear 8 because there are 8 speed in this transmission. So the gear ratio, when you have incorrect gear ratio, one possible cause could be the solenoid valve. So it's really important to know in what gear this solenoid valve is working so we can find actually the possible cause. You can find which solenoid valve might be malfunctioning, and then you can go for fix it. So you see there are many different number of fault codes related to the solenoid valve malfunction. But what are these solenoid valves and where they are located? So here you see one view from the valve body. So this is the valve body as you see on the left, and all the solenoid valves are actually numbers for you. So the first one, which is right here, is 2/8 brake control solenoid valve. Number 2 is 4/6 clutch control solenoid valve, and number 3 is 3/7R clutch control solenoid valve. We have the UD clutch control solenoid valve right here, and number 5 is overdrive clutch and low and reverse brake control solenoid valve. We have another 3 solenoid valves in here. As you see, they are all listed here. SSA solenoid valve, torque converter, and line pressure control valve. So all these solenoid valves, they are not exactly like each other. So they have different resistance. They have different values in the scan tool if you are trying to check them in the scan tool. So we know the location right now. We need to go to the next step to see how we can test them. We can start from the first one, which is 4/6 clutch control solenoid valve. A good thing about the transmissions in Kia and Hyundai is this kind of actually codes. So when this code is referring to 4 and 6, we know that this solenoid valve is working on gear 4 and 6. Okay, so this is actually something like a referral to that specific gear or those specific gears to make our life easier. So what we have in this table shows you the specification. So we know that the control type of this solenoid is normal low. So we have two different types. We have normal low and we have normal high. So when we say normal low, it means when low current is provided to this solenoid, this solenoid is not actually providing any oil to actually that clutch or that brake. But when high current is provided, this solenoid is going to provide the oil as well. So as you see here, the current for this solenoid is 0 to 1100 milliamp. So it means when something close to 0 amp is provided to this solenoid, it means nothing or very little oil is provided from this solenoid valve to 4 and 6 clutch controls, actually 4 and 6 clutch. But if high current is provided, this solenoid is going to provide the oil to 4 and 6 clutch. And what else? This is actually what we need to check the solenoid inside the scan tool. So if you are trying to check the solenoid using the scan tool, this current is going to be helpful, and I'm going to show you how to check the solenoid in the scan tool as well. Coil resistance, this one is actually the internal resistance for this solenoid, and we say that 5.3 plus minus 0.3 ohms is actually the internal resistance for this sensor. If you think the sensor is faulty, you can find the sensor and check the resistance. But are you supposed to uh, remove the transmission oil pan to reach to the solenoid and check the resistance? No, there are some other ways that I'm gonna show you. So as I said earlier, and as you see from the name of this solenoid is 4/6 clutch control solenoid valve. So it's supposed to work on gear 4 and gear 6. Okay, so this is the solenoid valve operation, and on the next column right here, you see the clutch operation. So 4/6 clutch. So this one is supposed to work on gear 4 and gear 6. But let's see what we have here. So uh, you see another photo from the solenoid location. So this solenoid is located right here on the valve body, and we already know that the solenoid internal resistance is 5.3. But how are we supposed to check the solenoid internal resistance? As I told you, as I said earlier, you don't need to remove the oil pan. You can just find a transmission connector, this one that is highlighted right here. So we just need to find the pins and check the resistance. And you see the pin numbers right here. This pin number is provided from Kia Sportage. Kia Sportage 2023. It's better to check the workshop manual and the wind diagram for your specific car. So as soon as you found these pin numbers, you just need to check the resistance between these two pins, and your resistance must be within this range. But how can we check the solenoid valve in the scan tool? So this is the value for this specific solenoid valve. As you see the value for that, because we know this solenoid valve is a normal low. So it means when low current is applied, when low current is provided to this solenoid, uh, actually this clutch pack, 4/6 clutch pack is not going to work. So as you see, we already know that this one is going to work on gear 4 and gear 6. So technically on gear 7, this solenoid is not working. So as you know, low current is provided when solenoid is not working, because we already have the gear 7 here and solenoid is getting low current. But right when solenoid is working, when it's getting high current, it's going to provide the oil pressure to 4 and 6 clutch pack. And right here, you see that we have the gear number 6. So high current means solenoid is energized and it's going to provide the oil to the clutch pack. So this is how we can check the solenoid operation in the scan tool. Let's go for the next one. The next solenoid is 37R clutch control solenoid valve. This one is a normal low as well, so exactly like the previous one. So the current range is exactly again like the previous one between 0 and 1100 milliamp, and the resistance is the same because they are exactly same type of solenoid valves. So uh, we know that this actually we know that this solenoid valve works on gear number 3, 7, and reverse. So as a result, you see on the table in here, solenoid works on reverse, gear number 3 and number 7, and we have the clutch pack working on those gears. Once again, we're gonna see the location of this solenoid valve, which is right here on the valve body. The resistance is exactly the same as the previous one. And for your own reference, these two pins, 14 and 17, are actually the pin numbers for this solenoid valve on the transmission. The procedure for checking the solenoid valve is like the previous one. The only difference is this solenoid valve is going to work on different gears, like 3, 7, and reverse, as we said earlier. So low current is provided for the solenoid. So as a result, solenoid is not providing any oil. As you see here, we have gear number 6, and we know that this solenoid is not going to work on gear number 6. But right after providing high current to the solenoid, solenoid will start working, and as you see, gear number 7, it's already activated and clutch pack is working. That's why we have the gear number 7 engaged. The next solenoid valve is for 2/8 brake. So this one, again, like the previous one, normal low. The current is 0 to 1100 with 5.3 ohms of resistance. As it's very clear from the name, this solenoid works on gear number 2 and number 8. The location on the valve body, one more time, is right here. So this solenoid is 2/8 brake control solenoid valve. And as you see, the pin numbers for this one on this specific card that I'm showing you is pin number 14 and 23. So really easy. You can find this connector. You can remove the connector and measure the resistance on these two pins to find if the solenoid internal resistance is within the range or not. Still, we have the same way for reading the live data in the scan tool. The only difference is the gear numbers. So we know that this solenoid valve is normal low. So in the low current is not working. So as you see in gear number 1, this solenoid is receiving low current. But when it's receiving high current, solenoid valve is engaged and it's going to provide the oil to 2/8 brake. As you see, gear number 2 is engaged right. Next one is a normal high solenoid valve, which is for UD clutch control solenoid valve. So UD or underdrive clutch control solenoid valve is different from the other one because this one is a normal high. And when we say normal high, it means everything for the solenoid is other way around. It means when high current is provided to the solenoid, oil is not provided to that clutch pack or that brake. Okay, when low current is provided, solenoid is gonna provide the oil to that clutch pack, and we will see later on the scan tool. But the amount of current that TCM provides to this solenoid valve is exactly same as the other one, even the resistance. The only difference is the normal high. And you see the difference here because this one is normal high. When this solenoid is receiving normal high, you see, is not going to provide any oil to the clutch pack. And as you see, when this one is receiving normal high, this clutch is not working. When it's receiving low current, the clutch pack is working. So this one is exactly opposite to the other solenoid valves. So location on the valve body for this one is just right here. This is the underdrive clutch control solenoid valve. And for checking the resistance, this time we need to check between pin number 7 and 25 on the transmission connector. And this time when we check the live data, we know that the UD clutch uh, is working on gear number 1. And as you see right here, when UD clutch is working on gear number 1, solenoid is receiving low current. And when solenoid is receiving high current, UD clutch is not working anymore. We know that the underdrive clutch is not working on gear number 7. So high current means there is no oil going from the UD clutch control solenoid valve to the clutch pack. There is another solenoid valve on this valve body. We call it overdrive clutch and low and reverse brake control solenoid valve. This one is a normal high as well. The amount of current and resistance is these two are exactly the same, so easy to remember. And the operation is just like this because this one is a normal high. When normal high is provided to the solenoid, there is no oil going to overdrive clutch or low and reverse brake. So we know that the overdrive clutch is working on these gears, gear number 5, 6, 7, and 8, and low and reverse brake works on these gears, park, reverse, neutral, and 1. Location for this solenoid valve is right here on the valve body. We already know the resistance, and for checking the internal resistance, we just need to check these two pins. The procedure for checking the live data in the scan tool for this solenoid valves is it's exactly like the previous one. When low current is provided to this solenoid, we know that the clutch pack is already engaged because oil is going to overdrive clutch right now. But in gear number 3, we know that none of these two, I mean overdrive clutch or low and reverse brake, none of these two are working. So it means that this solenoid is normal high. The next solenoid valve is line pressure control solenoid valve, which is a normal high as well. The amount of current for this one is different from the other ones. It's between 0 to 850, and resistance is different as well. So we know that the resistance is 5.1 plus minus 0.3. So this is the location for this line pressure control solenoid valve on the valve body. These two pin numbers 7 and 22 are referring to the pin numbers on this specific car for checking the internal resistance. We have torque converter control solenoid valve as well. So this one is a normal low. The amount of resistance and the current, it's like the previous one that I just explained. Location for this solenoid valve on the valve body is right here, and it's easy to check the internal resistance when you have the pin numbers like this, number 14 and number 1. We have another solenoid valve, SSA solenoid valve. This one is actually on-off solenoid valve. So the current is 9 to 16, and the coil resistance is between 10 to 11. So the coil resistance for this one is different from any other solenoid valve on the valve body. This solenoid valve works on P, R, park, reverse, neutral, and gear number 1. So location for this solenoid valve is right here. We know that the resistance is between 10 to 11 ohms, and these two pins, 7 and 9, are actually the pin numbers for checking the internal resistance of this solenoid valve. So as I said earlier, on some of these solenoid valves, there is a number on the solenoid that you need to record before installing the solenoid. So when you replace any of these solenoid, you need to find this number, take a photo or write it down somewhere. And later on, you need to insert this number in the scan tool. So actually, you are actually registering this number for the TCM, transmission control module. There is a procedure in Kia and Hyundai for this kind of transmission that we call it oil pressure characteristics input. So you are actually registering these kind of solenoid valves to the TCM. So for doing that, you need to use the scan tool. In the scan tool, in a special function or in software management, as you see here, we have one item for oil pressure input. And later on, after going to the next page, you see some condition. So this function is to input oil pressure characteristics to TCU after solenoid valve replacement. So these are the conditions. Ignition switch must be on, shift lever must be on the park position, vehicle must be stopped, and engine must be stopped as well. And then you only need to select your solenoid valve from here. So you have the solenoid valves listed in here. You just select yours. And if you go to the next page, you have just some more guide referring to the number that you need. So in this box, you need to insert the the number that you already have for that solenoid valve, and that's going to be it. Okay, so let's see how we can do that on the car. All right, and this is the wind diagram for this solenoid valve. So as you see here, we have the valve body, all the solenoid valves, all the oil temperature sensor, and the speed sensors. And this one is the PCM, which is actually engine control module and transmission control module together. So as you see, we have 4 solenoid valves in here and the other 4 located right here. Okay, so it's really important to know we have 2 power supply provided to these solenoid valves. So power supply number 1 is actually for these 4 solenoid valves, and power supply number 2 is actually for these solenoid valves. And any of these solenoid valves, they have different control line connected to the PCM. So PCM is controlling any of these solenoid valves individually, obviously uh, to provide the oil pressure to that specific clutch pack or the brake that we need for that specific gear. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like and share it with your friends. Thank you very much for watching.